Well, I know we're not quite in the place that we are used to being when we gather, but it's certainly wonderful to see all of your faces and so special to be with you in person. For my first in-person Shabbat service inside with our congregation. Just out of curiosity, for whom else is it the first time you're indoors praying a service in the COVID era? Anybody else? Oh my gosh, that's a lot of people. That's wonderful. Well, I'd like to first of all express special gratitude to Wally, who's in the back. Wally, thank you so much for your hospitality, and we really owe the First Congregational Church a great debt of gratitude. They've just so openly and instantly opened their beautiful sanctuary to us, and we're very grateful. In weeks to come, we hope also to be outside and enjoy the breeze, but thank you for rolling with our weather-related plan, and we're glad to be here together. Because it is our first time for many of us inside for a TBT Friday night service, I'd like to share in this blessing with you, the blessing for new beginnings and for new firsts, as it feels like a new first in this time of new possibilities. The Shechianu blessing, thanks God for giving us life, sustaining us, and helping us reach this new occasion together. So we say, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehechianu, V'himanu, V'hiyanu, Lazman Hazeh. And I'd especially also like to say welcome to those of us who are joining on Zoom. Even though you're not here, you're very much part of the congregational family. So we're happy to see you and be seen by you as well. And we'll continue now with our candle blessing. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Please join us in singing this blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
And having officially marked the beginning of Shabbat for us, this is a great time to turn to someone near you, perhaps you haven't said hello to, sitting across from you or near you. Wish each other a Shabbat Shalom. I know it feels strange to socialize in person again. Our service continues with Kabbalat Shabbat, and as we formally enter Shabbat into our midst, we'll join together in Lecha Dodi, and at that last verse, we will rise and together welcome the Shabbat bride. Lecha Dodi, page 3.
Lecha lecha dodi, likad likad kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likad likad kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likad likad kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likad likad kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor b'zachor b'ribo echad, yishmi'anu elanei echad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, v'shemo tiferet v'litfila la 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 la. Lecha lecha dodi, likad likad kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likad likad kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Please rise and face the exits.
Gam besimcha u'sola, to'emunei am segula. Boi chala, la 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 la.
Lecha lecha dodi, likad likad kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Lecha lecha dodi, likad likad kala, b'nei b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
All right, I'm feeling a little more warmed up now. And every time we enter prayer together, we formally announce we are here and ready to pray, ready to enter this space with intention, ready to welcome Shabbat, perhaps ready to leave something from the week behind at that door. If you didn't leave whatever that is, whatever piece of baggage needs to be in its place at the end of this week, feel free to symbolically leave that at that back door when you stand up, and you don't even have to pick it up when you leave at the end of the service. Please rise for Baruch Hu, page 3. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed Le'olam Va'ed. Am I right? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? For evening and seasons. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, creator of tide, of time. You guide the current of day into night, creating this moment of change in which stars flow through the heavens. We ride your wave of transformation away from work and struggle toward you and your holiness. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Together, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv Aravim. Adonai, when you gave us Torah, you revealed your love and compassion for us. Your Torah teachings guide us toward holiness and justice. What greater gift might we receive than the Torah, the heart of our lives? It is in our love of you that we strive to be holy people. Praise to you, Adonai, who expresses love of Israel through words of Torah, Together, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
You can have a seat. Turn to page 5.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha V'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, u'v'lechtecha v'derech, u'v'shochvecha u'v'kumecha, u'kishartam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'einecha, u'chtavtam Al mezuzot beitecha u'v'yisharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim Liod lachem le'elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Amen. I believe I neglected to say at the beginning of the service that I wanted to thank you all for helping us abide by our COVID-19 safety protocols. And if I get something in that wrong, I'm sure Karen will tell me at the end, but I think, please correct me, that our current policy for these situations stipulates that anybody who's vaccinated has the opportunity to not be wearing a mask, and anybody who has not been vaccinated is asked to please remain masked during the service. And also anybody who wishes to wear a mask for any reason is of course welcome to without any judgment. Did I get that right? Okay, good. I can't help, when I'm looking through this beautiful space and at this beautiful blue-green aquamarine carpet, it just reminds me of the scene of the sea, because it says in the book of Exodus, chapter 15, that the sea at that moment was welling up like walls on each side. I think it says like a kotel, like, you know, like the kotel, the wall, the western wall. It says they were walls of water. And so there's this midrash that these two guys were walking across the sea with this wall of water on either side. And Shimon and his buddy Levi were walking together, Shimon in front, and Shimon was just looking down. He was obsessed with his feet because he couldn't help but notice that it was just mud. He said, I'm trudging through mud. Mud here, mud the next step. It's mud all the way. Why are we trudging through this mud? And then, of course, you know, the next guy has to complain. You think you have it bad? You're kicking it up on me. It's getting everywhere, all the way down the line. Mud here, mud there. What is this moment but mud? And the tradition says, no, it's not mud. If they were only to look up and look from left to right, they would see these beautiful, unbelievable images, like the aquarium with the wall-to-wall glass, the sea creatures, the safety in that space in between the marble all around them, everywhere, beauty. But no, sometimes we Jews, mud, 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 mud. Micha Mocha is a spiritual antidote to mud, 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 mud. Has us say, if we just open our eyes and look up and look all around us, there is beauty everywhere. We have to connect to wonder. We have to connect to possibility. We have to tell our freedom story to stay in awe of it day after day, week after week. So that's why we sing this song. Can we sing it together? Page 6.
realize with the beautiful blue sky and the daylight still streaming in, nighttime feels far away, as it should in summer evenings like this. Nevertheless, we reflect on this hope as we prepare for the evening hours and think about resting our heads in our beds. We ask God, Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu, God, lay us down, let us be safe in our repose, keep all that is out to get us far, far away, distance all enemies and harm and wrongdoing. Give us a shelter of peace. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. We continue with this prayer for peace and stillness. Ashkivenu, page 6.
Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'chomidenu malkeinu lechaim. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'chomidenu malkeinu lechaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha lechaim leshalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'chomidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'chomidenu malkeinu lechaim.
Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. Page 7, let's read together in the top of the page. The people of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout the ages as a covenant for all time. It is a sign between me and the people of Israel. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day God ceased from work and was refreshed.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Okay, I am on the secret agenda to teach the Jewish people to clap on the 2nd and 4th beat of the measure. Okay. Repeat after me. That's all you have to do. Now take away the foot. Vesham. See how it goes? That's all. Do you think we can learn that?
Did.
Okay, let's learn that. All right, sounds good. We approach now the central standing prayer service, which we begin together, and we'll then take a moment of silent meditation. We invite you to continue at the bottom of the page we're on, and please rise for Amidah.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu v'Imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevii Geulah Livnei Bneihem, Lema'an Shemo v'Ahava. Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magid Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah Rav le'Hoshia, Morbid hatal, Mechalkel chayim b'chesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'givurot, Umidomelav, Melech memit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman atah l'hachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yahalilu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. The moment of awe that you experienced this week, but you did not know it. Let that be the meditation in which we begin our silent prayer. Feel free to be seated, to stand, whatever you prefer.
Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atah melech Adon Lecha Shalom. Ki atah melech Adon Lecha Shalom. Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. B'tov edecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael. B'chol עת ובכל שעה בשומך. Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
This week in Torah, we get a double portion called Matot Maseh, the end of the book of Numbers, and it provides a glimpse of what we today might call restorative justice. In Torah law, someone who has accidentally killed another may flee to a designated city to seek atonement and rehabilitation. This allows time for witnesses and judges to ascertain the truth of events, to apply the law dispassionately. The individual in question is neither off the hook, but nor subject to vigilante justice. The individual in question's fate hangs while cooler heads prevail. And while this is wildly different from how we might do things today, the cities of refuge constitute an ancient sort of due process. Our criminal justice system today ostensibly values due process, equal justice under the law. But for many people attempting to navigate that system, these are nothing but a distant dream. It's true especially in communities of color whose challenges are compounded by the intersection of historic factors: generational poverty, historic inequity in access to housing, education, capital, employment. Then there's redlining, voter suppression, racial profiling and traffic stops, drug charges, the war on drugs. The list goes on and on and on. Folks who lack the means to post bail upon arrest often experience a cascading series of further misfortunes in their family and professional lives, often in mental and physical health too. And that's regardless of whether they are in fact guilty of a crime. The fact is, in this country, it is often far graver to make a mistake if you're Black than if you're white. It is far more dangerous to be Black than to be white. Now, we all know that our country has many upstanding law enforcement officers. I'm especially glad for our relationship in the Jewish community here on the shoreline with our local law enforcement. But in the George Floyd era, can any of us really be blind to the pernicious racism in policing? The first United States police forces were established, why? To catch runaway slaves.
The modern scourge of mass incarceration is extensively documented in books such as Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, which perhaps some of you have read. We have made some progress as a country, but not enough. Our justice system is far more punitive than restorative. It tends to perpetuate the social problems it seeks to address. The last few years, I was part of a faith-based organization of congregations in Fairfield and New Haven counties that worked on, among other projects, passing clean slate legislation, which seeks to remove some barriers to employment, education, and housing for those who have been convicted of crimes and have already paid their debt to society. Though the bill was far from perfect, it was a big step toward a more just Connecticut, and I am so happy to share that Governor Lamont signed it into law just last month. Now, many of us are fortunate to live fairly insulated lives, distant from these struggles. But for our neighbors not too far away in New Haven, many other places in our state, this is not a theoretical problem. Institutionalized racial prejudice is an everyday part of their lived reality. I hope that throughout my time in our congregation, we can build relationships in our area, in our state, to our broader New Haven County faith partners, and work together to address some of the many challenges. And where does all of that start? By being able to speak about difficult matters like racism, like the truth of slavery, its legacy, in a candid, open-minded way. And the systemic prejudice is nothing new to us. Jews have known persecution in this country as well. The anti-Semitism our immigrant ancestors faced regularly is also a pervasive and present reality today as well. And while anti-Semitism has a different history than racism, in this country they are cut from a single cloth called white supremacy. Like many of you, I was extremely distressed to see recently that a public forum had been held in Guilford opposing the teaching of critical race theory in Guilford schools. Critical race theory, in essence, seeks to understand how racism has shaped our laws, culture, spaces, and institutions. It's a threat not only to active white supremacists, but more troublingly, to people who teach their children that racism is just a bad thing that some people do. That sort of lesson makes me deeply uncomfortable because it makes the problem someone else's problem, not our problem. It's a deflection from reality and, in my opinion, moral cowardice. I want to be very clear tonight. Racism is our problem. It's an American problem, and we all have a role in addressing it. Further, when we fail to teach the true history and legacy of slavery, we are failing to tell the truth to our children. We are failing our children. If we cannot reckon with the truth, then we will never move forward together as a country. Human progress requires facing the past as a means to, as the great Elie Wiesel taught, build a moral bridge to the future. Germany has done this exceedingly well. Did you know that German school children learn from a young age about the horrors their country perpetrated, including by visiting the camps, by completing experiential reenactments in their classrooms? I know that sounds pretty extreme, right? Amidst that discomfort, though, educators are able to impart a shared collective memory and ethical civic responsibility. If there are any Radiolab fans out there, Radiolab journalist Guy Raz once lived in Germany, and he wrote this week that the average German, quote, knows and understands the details and legacy of the mass murder and persecution their forebears committed. He goes on to point out, most school children in the United States still do not learn that plantations were concentration camps where terror, rape, assault, and brutal family separation took place. They do not learn about the generations of families ripped apart at the snap of a finger, or the immense wealth that was created and passed on to this day by people who benefited from the free labor of enslaved human beings. And this is where critical race theory comes in. Permit me a brief exercise, just for a moment. Consider this fact. Following World War II, the GI Bill opened new doors for many veterans. Access to college and home mortgages allowed a new generation of upwardly mobile Americans to build substantial wealth. If you think that's the sort of thing that you would read in an American textbook, American history textbook for high school or something, Raise your hand. I'm going to say it one more time. Following World War II, the GI Bill opened new doors for many veterans. Access to college and home mortgages allowed a new generation of upwardly mobile Americans to build substantial wealth. This could have been in my high school textbook or yours. It's a story that we tell about the GI Bill, which, by the way, benefited many of our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. Probably not great-grandparents at this point yet. Maybe. Depends how young you are. Okay, think about the sentence reframed this way. The GI Bill was structured in such a way that allowed white veterans to accumulate generational wealth and prosperity, while accelerating gaps in wealth, education, and civil rights between white and Black Americans. Racist policy enacted by states and municipalities intentionally limited Black Americans' access to these opportunities. Has anybody ever read a sentence like that in a history textbook? This sentence is no less true than the first sentence. And in fact, it is true in a more important way than the first sentence. And this is a statement informed by critical race theory. It is not magical or oppositional or subversive for the sake of dismantling America. It is empirical and verifiable. An elaboration, including footnotes to respected scholarly publications, would appear in the textbook to substantiate this historical fact. In fact, it's amazing to me that this is not common knowledge. But I'd never really stopped to think about it until I heard somebody on the radio talking about this on NPR last week. Even this basic truth was omitted from my education, as still is from most every American history textbook today. And for the young people in the room, I'm curious to hear afterwards what your experience has been. Now you might say, okay, that's a very specific example. Why should we teach that particular thing? Because the story of the GI Bill most of us learn follows the American legend of equal opportunity for all, the American dream, a story we all love to tell and share. But we know that from the very first slave ships settling along the shores to the Constitution's 3/5 rule, to Jim Crow laws, to Reconstruction and beyond, our civic life was designed and protected by powerful people to benefit a white male land-owning majority. This is not a controversial statement. It's obvious if you read the Constitution. The founders knew this. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all, unless you were a slave, unless you were a woman, unless you were Black. Thomas Jefferson, who was conflicted, I believe, in his brilliance, in his moral leadership, in his moral failings, he had this to say about the clash of principles within the founding documents. Did you know this? He wrote, "I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just and that his justice cannot sleep forever." If that doesn't chill you to the bone, I don't know what will. That was written by Thomas Jefferson. Those who oppose teaching critical race theory often refer to some fairly extreme examples, okay, of a few teachers who are maybe on the fringes, who are maybe teaching in a Montessori school or doing something that's a little bit on the extreme. We cannot focus on these straw man arguments, on these extreme examples. All of us might agree or disagree about the particular strategies of pedagogy, but not, I believe, about matters of fact, nor about matters of conscience. And I believe that just as Germans must feel some discomfort in order to reckon with their brutal modern history, Americans need to get a little uncomfortable to reckon with ours. Real education, transformative education, is impossible without discomfort, because sometimes the truth just isn't pretty. Having said all that, I also want to say what I think critical race theory is not. It does not advocate for developmentally inappropriate lessons. It isn't an excuse to make students feel ashamed of themselves. It isn't a Marxist attempt to overthrow the democratic capitalist state. And that, yes, has been a fairly frequent critique, which probably tells you something about the critics. Now, a number of states are currently trying to pass laws that prohibit the teaching of critical race theory, including a Tennessee bill that restricts the instruction that causes students, any instruction that causes students to feel, and I quote, discomfort, guilt, anguish, or another form of psychological distress, solely based on the individual's race or sex. A Texas bill goes even further, forbidding teaching that, quote, slavery and racism are anything other than deviations from, betrayals of, or failures to live up to authentic founding principles of the United States. I want to be very clear. These bills are very dangerous to a civic and free society. They tend to avoid mentioning CRT, and that proves that CRT is not the point. It's a straw man, a boogeyman, for people who are afraid, who are terrified to confront terrible things bravely. The point is that any effort to pull back the curtain, to reckon with the truth of our history, must be a grave threat to the power structure that has kept people of color in their place since the 17th century. This is why I care so much. This is about so much more than one academic discipline, one specific tit-for-tat debate about what is taught in a particular classroom. This is about a wholesale effort to, as W.E.B. Du Bois once said, transform history into propaganda. These efforts constitute censorship, dishonesty, and moral obtuseness. They are not only un-American, but I believe contrary to everything we stand for as Jewish people. We are a people who remembers our history, zachor, even when it is painful. We are a people who teach our children the truth. We are a people who believe in rehabilitation and teshuvah, second chances. We are a people born in prophecy who follow the moral legacy of the prophets who told us to never sit on the sidelines when justice is at stake. So let us never stop fighting the forces that would obscure those goals. Our children's future demands it. Shabbat shalom. Our hearts turn now to all those in our community who are in need of healing. I'll share first the names that have been made known to us, and afterwards we'll have a chance for anybody who wishes to pray for someone in your life to do so. We think first of our temple members, April D'Amato, Norma Diamond, Karen Flatley, Henry Gettenberg, Carol Gordon, Tom Louie, and Josh Lipschitz. We think also of loved ones, Patty Hayes, Harriet Cohen-Haggerty, Jay Fliss, Mickey Bart, Cindy Scher, Bart Young, Andrea Schaffner, Jennifer Murphy, Helen Dreyfus, Ben Peck, Mark and Martha Potter, Sandy Spector, Gloria Newell, Gloria Jennings, Celeste Hawks, Sabine Meyer, Steve Wasserman, Danita Semple, Joan Sidney, David Char, Amelia Sidney, Amy Fissell, Ellsworth Matthias, Devorah Shlamit, Deborah Poulin, Samuel and Gail Feidelberg, Ira Weiss, Marielle Sheepers, Betsy Becerris Ross. I'll invite also anybody who is joining us on Zoom can feel free to share in the chat, and I hopefully will figure out how to access those names in a moment. And for everyone else, I invite you, if you wish to share the names, some you're thinking of feeling at this time, feel free to do so. See if I can check in for a moment.
Aw.
Not sure this is working. Oh, wait. Okay. I found somebody. Okay. Okay, good. We also bring Shigura for Jay and Kate and Lorenzo. May God, who blessed our ancestors, bless us too, as we pray for all those in our lives who are in need of healing. Please join us on page 10 for Mishpera.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishebera imotenu mekor habracha lehamotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
As our service concludes, we turn to Aleinu L'Shabeach. On page 11, this prayer directs our hearts toward a better world, a more perfect world, the world that we can bring about. Please rise, page 11.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, בגורלנו ככל עמונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please have a seat. Jeff Babin, you're on.
Shabbat Shalom. Jeff Babin, immediate past president on the board of directors, and a warm welcome to everyone here, especially any guests who are with us tonight. Tomorrow, please join us for Torah study at 9 a.m., led by Cantor Boyle, and the Zoom link is in your inbox. This Sunday, all TBT women are invited to the Kol Ami barbecue. It's from 12 to 3, starting at noon. The invite and address are also in your inbox. You can look at the weekly Wednesday blast and have all the information for this fun afternoon event. I also want to, talking about the weekly Wednesday blast, remember also there are links there to sign up for Rabbi Moss meet and greets. We had one just the other evening, 20 people over to our house. There's great opportunities to not only meet Rabbi Moss and his wife, Rabbi Susan Landau Moss, but to see your fellow congregants again as well in person. And we've got 4 more coming up. And there are also individual signups if you want just the individual one-on-one session with Rabbi Moss on Zoom. So please look at that and take advantage of that wonderful opportunity. Next Friday, July 16th, again, Shabbat services will once again be weather permitting on the Madison Green in front of the Congregational Church at 6 p.m. Again, Shabbat Shalom.
We think now of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died of the season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. We know that although the light of their lives may no longer be burning in this world, it is with us every day in our hearts. So I'd like to recognize those in the period of Shloshim, and if I say the name of your loved one, you're invited to rise if you wish. Within the 30 days of a loss, Nancy Shapiro, cousin of Jill Assange, and Ruth Loeb Forrest, mother of Susan Forrest. At this time, we also recognize the Yartsites, those who have passed away at this time in past years. And please rise when I read your loved one's name. Perry Deitch, Sarah Shapiro, Phyllis Silidker, Ida Hyman, Joel Silidker, Robert Volk, Beatrice and Morris Simon, Francis and Irving Blumenthal, Samuel A. Sack, and Hyman Siegel. We invite anybody who's joining on Zoom to place any names in the chat of someone you're remembering tonight. And we also open it up to our congregation. If you feel comfortable, please rise and tell us who you're thinking of tonight. Then I invite us all to rise together as one congregation as we say these hallowed words. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach re'utei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei v'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah v'barach le'alam u'le'omei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar v'yit alev v'yit halal shnei d'kudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'yimru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, amen. Oseh shalom b'yimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, amen. May the source of blessing bring blessing into our hearts as the blessings of those we have loved and lost still is with us this day and every day.
Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimeru, amen.
You may be seated. Should we do Kiddush and then closing song, or do you want to do closing song?
We can do Kiddush first.
Kiddush first?
Sure,
I think
let's
that
mix
makes
it
more
up.
sense. All right, great, thank you. She's so patient with me because I'm still learning all the ropes. Thank you so much, Cantor. It's such a pleasure to lead alongside you.
Likewise.
Your music is awesome. Okay, so let's do some Kiddush together, okay? Here, can I give this to you?
Yes, please.
Okay.
All right.
No, the guitar makes it hard to navigate a little bit.
Need an extra set of arms. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzav banu v'shabbat kodsho v'avav ratzon yichilanu. Zikaron lema'aseh bereshit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Ki banu bacharta, v'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim. Shabbat kodecha be'ahava u'b'ratzon inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat.
Amen. Chaim Tovim, I got you.
It's a fresh market challah.
Maybe another time.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Just a little bit. Thank you.
Closing song. I'm still chewing.
Closing song can be found on page 13, Odiabo. Odiabo shalom aleinu, Odiabo shalom aleinu, Odiabo shalom aleinu ve'ol kulam. Odiabo shalom aleinu, Odiabo shalom aleinu, Odiabo shalom aleinu ve'ol kulam. Salam aleinu ve'yachol ha'olam. Salam, salam, salam aleinu ve'yachol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Odiabo shalom aleinu, Odiabo shalom aleinu, Odiabo shalom aleinu ve'ol kulam. Odiabo shalom aleinu, Odiabo shalom aleinu, Odiabo shalom aleinu ve'ol kulam.
Adonai yishmor tzetecha v'oecha. May God bless you in your going, just as God blessed you in your coming. May you have a Shabbat Shalom, a peaceful Shabbat, and a wonderful weekend. Good to see all of you here. Many more in-person gatherings coming up soon. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.